Hello and welcome to the Collective Shift channel. Back this week for another member town hall. So thank you all for joining us. Looking forward to discussing the week that was, as we do every week, talking about the markets, investment trends, and then certain themes as well, big stories going on in crypto. As always, we end with a member-only section for our members to ask us questions in the community. We provide that for about 15 minutes or so. But that is for people listening on our podcast or on the YouTube channel. That's not included in these sessions. So that's some member only content. But until then, we'll cover all the biggest themes for the week. And how you going, everyone? How you going, Nick?
Awesome. Yeah, keen. A lot of good news coming out overnight. So really keen to dig into it.
Absolutely, I'm excited.
Yeah, there's some really great news coming out overnight. Like, it seems like everything just nothing happens for a while in the week. And then in the last 2 days, a lot of stuff comes out and you're like, oh, we got to talk about it. So yeah, I'm super excited to talk about the news today. Let's get into it.
It's because they know this happens on a Friday. So they know. Oh, it's happening. We've got to get the news in.
Yep, they know. They watch us daily.
Yeah. We know Brian Armstrong's a big listener, big watcher as well. So I know he held off on the announcement. So
Brian, we see you, man. Hey, Brian.
100% slid into my DMs and everything.
Yeah. That's it. So yeah, just a quick market update to kick things off, and then we'll get into obviously the big news with Coinbase overnight. But yeah, this week really just some nice flat sort of price action. Really, Bitcoin's hovering around the 24 to 25,000 US. ETH's been hovering around the 1,700 US. Over in the stock market, it's been quite a bit of red recently. I think 10 of the last 14 days or so has been red over in the States, and even locally here in Australia. And yeah, I think the Fed minutes got released during the week. That was probably the biggest thing. So, the Federal Reserve, Central Bank of the US, they released their meeting minutes or their notes, a couple of weeks after their previous meetings. So, the public gets to see what they were discussing, what sort of led them to their decisions. And yeah, the consensus takeaway from that was there's pretty clear that, there won't really be any rate cuts this year, and there'll likely be, another 1 to 2 as sort of the consensus, another 1 to 2 sort of interest rate hikes in the US. So again, I think we posted it, Victor did for Collective Shift members earlier this week, just kind of showing a really interesting chart of just how much their predictions have altered, even just going back 6 months ago to when they sort of thought that they were going to stop hiking rates. So it's always something to pay attention to, because it really has had a effect on crypto prices, but not so much recently. I'll probably let you handle that one, Nick.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one because there's reports that come out by the BTC S&P 500 correlation that's apparently hitting, I think, July 2021 lows. And there's some interesting discussion around whether Bitcoin is actually correlated to that monetary news and macro. The NY Fed come out and said that it actually wasn't, which was really interesting. Now, that was on a limited data set, so they're going to do more research into it. So it's one to pay attention to, because I think we all felt like Bitcoin has started to become really correlated with that. But I think contrary evidence saying that perhaps not.
And how's the New York Federal Reserve doing a study on the correlation of Bitcoin and the S&P on Bitcoin and just
there's lots of good Fed papers into Bitcoin and even scaling, Ethereum. You really look into it. It's really interesting to see that they're really paying attention to this stuff, and it's not just some fringe concept that bunch of internet people are really into.
Yeah, the space has moved tremendously, right? A couple of years ago, you never would have thought that they'd be looking into this and making reports like this. So I think it's a positive in the end, and hopefully they get to find out some stuff and create good policy, and hopefully they don't feel threatened by everything.
There was a good DeFi report as well. I think they did, or I think was it the St. Louis Fed looking into DeFi. So yeah, lots of really good insights into there, and I think we're expecting an interesting DeFi report by the White House that should be dropping any day now. I think could be delayed, but in their brief last year, they said that they're going to come out and release a DeFi paper and report sometime in February, and then we're going to see an NFT one sometime in July. So that's going to be something interesting to look for DeFi tokens. it all depends on the wording and what's in there. If it's super bearish, probably some volatility maybe for DeFi coins.
Can we just pause for a second and just listen to those words? The White House casually dropping a paper on DeFi and the one for NFTs. How good is that? Like, that is really big that the people in power actually are diving into this. It has their attention and they're going to drop some knowledge on it, on what they actually think. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's an interesting space. I know we're actually looking at token mapping in Australia. I've been digging into the consultation paper they released, like calling out people in the industry and anybody to voice their opinions on how tokens should be regulated and treated and looked at in Australia. So that was really interesting. And that was a really impressive paper. They really showed serious understanding, and there was some good things and bad things, but I think it was overall like really awesome just to see government really start to show some good knowledge into the industry and paying attention. So yeah, just keen to see what else is going to come out from these reports. It could be good or could be bad if they come out and really go hard at DeFi.
Yeah, spot on. Before we probably get into the Coinbase news, it probably dovetails nicely into just updates from Hong Kong. Just the past 1 to 2 weeks, traditionally has been sort of pretty closed on crypto regulation in recent years, particularly as more China influence has increased. And we've seen the famous China banning of crypto and unbanning and banning and unbanning. But that, like, overall, like, if I had to compare China to other countries, it would be pretty closed off and pretty one of the harshest sort of countries that regulate crypto. So to see Hong Kong reports in recent weeks that they're sort of preparing to become more open, and that's actually got the support of the Chinese government, which is kind of went a bit under the radar. But it's again, in light of like the US sort of news in recent weeks, that they're sort of getting a bit harsher and a bit more strict on crypto. We saw what happened with Kraken last week, and we've sort of been discussing it recent months. Maybe these other jurisdictions are seeing it as an opportunity, and that's sort of inspired Hong Kong to do a 180 essentially. And yeah, so again, it's exciting to see regulators still paying attention and hopefully still setting up some favorable regulatory environments, like in light of all the FTX collapse and whatnot.
I love this, where you see one jurisdiction that's putting the brakes on and another sees it as their opportunity. So they're like, hey, we can, take a lot of, business or whatever it may be, or innovation, we can bring it to our area if we make it favorable for these people and easy to operate here. That's the brilliant thing about crypto, where it's just global and instant and borderless, and you can operate wherever you'd like to.
Yeah, I think the term is like geographical arbitrage. So America's trying to tighten the reins down, and the Asia markets and Europe markets are like, no, we actually want innovation. You guys have had innovation for so long. All of you guys come over here, come and build, and let's make it a lot better. Yeah, I think it's great. And that's the beauty of crypto, right? You don't have to be in one location to run something and go across the world. So good on them.
Isn't that so true, where they've had innovation for so long, where you've had, Silicon Valley, and you think about all the top apps that have come out of there, and America, their hugest export is tech and culture through those apps. And they've had it for so long. They've just held the chalice, all the money, everything's like going towards them. And now you're going to start to see that shift. If they're making it harder for their own people to operate there, you start to see that shift to other countries. It's going to be really interesting to see what comes out of those countries with the favorable conditions.
Yeah, there was a good article in CoinDesk, actually, opinion article that came out this week that looked at this whole idea of founders in the US having to move offshore to pursue their token ideas, because they just don't feel comfortable doing it. Or the lawyers are just telling them, don't launch in the US. And, and it's really, it's tough, but it's opportunities for everyone else, I think, to create positive legislation. I know UK claims they want to be a crypto hub. So hopefully we can see these proactive solutions, and US might just have to look and catch up to, at the end when everyone else is kind of capturing this value.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been, speaking of the harsh sort of US regulatory environment, it's still been good to see probably the biggest crypto company in the US still, despite these headwinds, still, continue continue on and actually launching a new product, or actually, you know, even a blockchain in the last 12 hours. I'll let you take this one, Nick, because it was exciting news.
Yeah, this one was awesome. I was actually up doing the newsletter, and then I saw the news come through, and I was like, oh damn, can't go to sleep now. Gotta just it was so excited. There was a lot of anticipation about what Coinbase was going to announce. So it came out that Coinbase has announced that they're going to be building on Optimism's infrastructure called the OP stack to create their own Ethereum sort of scaling network. So this is a really big deal, as Coinbase is one of the biggest public companies and one of the biggest companies in crypto. So it's in my mind, it's a few winners here, like especially Ethereum, just because they're choosing Ethereum to build on, and then they're going to sort of see this as a gateway to different applications, to different ecosystems, and building bridges in and out and building that interconnectivity. So the idea for Coinbase is actually to start to deploy their own applications, have their own teams building on this native on-chain stack. So then they could sort of introduce their, I think, 100 million verified users on-chain rather than staying solely in their sort of Coinbase Web 2 application and platform. So really big news, especially for Optimism, and then for Coinbase, and then for Ethereum. So lots to discuss here.
Yeah, I think the name of it is Base, if anyone's interested, just BASE. And yeah, this OP stack, which is kind of like a software developer kit sort of that was developed by the team that built Optimism, which is a layer 2 solution on Ethereum. So they're kind of working with some of the Optimism team, or Coinbase is, and they're sort of, you know, helping them build it. Or Optimism is helping Coinbase build it. Even though in a sort of short-term way, you could argue that, you know, it's almost this Base, you know, blockchain or network is going to, in a way, be a competitor to the Optimism solution. But I think medium to long term, like, I think this is a really big, really bullish sort of news for Optimism. And it's sort of, you know, if you talk about some of the losers, Nick, I think, you know, even these smaller layer 2, you know, solutions, or even these zero knowledge ones, these privacy sort of oriented ones that they're still yet to sort of get their training wheels off and launch fully, you know, they might run into a few more hurdles now that Base is coming out.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because the way I'm thinking about it is that these alternative solutions that have a harder technological challenge to overcome, which is what companies like ZK Sync, what companies like Starknet, or like these other alternative networks to scale Ethereum, are using a completely different type of software or like type of technical challenge there. So it's going to be tough because Optimism and Arbitrum have the users at the moment. They've captured the users. They've got an easier product. Their scaling technology is a lot easier and production ready, whereas these other solutions are not production ready, really. They're still in the development stage. So it's going to have to be a case of whether they can launch, whether it's going to be a fight to bring back those users from things like Coinbase, then from Optimism and Arbitrum. And so its idea is whether it's going to be like a 10x better experience to them get these users over. Because if it's not like a 10x experience on gas costs on UI, you know, then it's going to be tough for people to actually want to move away from these brands that's what they're building, you know, Optimism or Arbitrum.
Yeah,
That's
what are
awesome.
your thoughts there, Leon? What are your thoughts? It's pretty shaking up the environment, isn't it? The L2 space.
Yeah, that's right. I think it's actually not just going to be a small chain. This is not going to be like CRO's Crypto.com chain, right? This is going to be not a fledgling. It's going to be competitor to Arbitrum and Optimism and even some of the other alternative layer ones like Solana. So I did a little bit of digging, followed a few crumbs, and I got a few talking points. If I got like 2 minutes, I wanted to look at what kind of raises, or because you know this is made by Coinbase Ventures and Coinbase. So they're looking. I saw a news article. Lots of dApps are coming over. Animoca brands, the Yatsui. So lots of gaming going to be on this chain. They have Magic Eden coming over there, which is, you know, a great NFT marketplace. They have DeFi protocols coming across, but what I really wanted to find out is this is going to be an institutional chain more than a retail chain. Yes, there will be retail on there, but let's look at some of the raises they've done. So Chaos Labs, they raised $20 million now. Coinbase Ventures, and we know Coinbase Ventures is going to have all of these raises coming onto their chain, right? Like they're going to. It's going to be mutually beneficial. So this Chaos Labs economic security and risk management platform for DeFi protocols. That sounds like something that institutions would be highly interested in, economic security. And the next one is Architect. They raised $5 million, and I covered this before a couple of times ago. Trading software to make centralized and decentralized crypto markets easier to use for large investors like institutions. This is going to be not a small boy chain. This is going to be a big institutional chain. So I think there's a whole bunch of people that are going to come over here, and we all know what it's going to be like. First, you have a lending and borrowing protocol, then you have an NFT marketplace, and then you have options or derivatives, and it just keeps going from there. And lastly, not to incite FOMO into anyone, but they are actually minting an NFT right now. So the Base protocol, they are minting something called Base Introduced. 48,000 minted so far. There's 3 days left. It's on their Twitter. Be super, super careful when you go and mint anything. So I myself am going to be participating in this layer 2, very much so. I'll be making videos on this. So if you are interested and you want to be a part of this new chain forming, which there's going to be a whole bunch of people on there because Coinbase has a huge user base, go ahead and mint this, go in the Discord groups, get involved. So I'm not going to leave the link here, but if you are interested, go and find the link on the Coinbase Twitter. So yeah, go and mint it. Yeah.
What's the mint price?
I thought it was 2 as well.
Free mint price.
It's like an open mint sort of thing.
Yeah, open mint, just gas fee.
Very interesting. Yeah. I like how this is all kind of coming together for Coinbase. I just hope it doesn't end up like their bloody marketplace.
Yeah.
But if you think about Coinbase, whenever we talk about them, they've kept themselves relatively clean and they're always fighting the good fight. They're ready to take on regulators. They're willing to fight for other people. They fund people, and they're just fighting that kind of the jaws of compliance that's coming around them, right? And they're like, no, this is how we want to do this. And they're always in the fight. And really what they're doing here is they're making it, first of all, easier for themselves. So I look at this as like Amazon, right? Where they're making this huge, company, but then the infrastructure wasn't good enough. So they made Amazon Web Services because it's exactly what they need. And they need to innovate really fast. And there wasn't that cloud technology available. So they made it. So these guys are coming in and they're utilizing an existing technology, but they're building on it. And they, like you said, they're going to start off with trading, options, derivatives, make it really fast, make sure that works and is stable. And then it'll be the next thing and the next thing. And they'll be able to innovate really quickly and then attract the best people to come over with their VC money and how easy it is to work on their chain. And really, that'll be a long-term sustainable competitive advantage for Coinbase. So all these things are just lining up for them, and it seems like a really good decision.
There is one caveat to this, though. That means that everything is lining up for them, but they are US-centric. They abide by US regulations. So it is likely to be heavily centralized and controlled by Coinbase, right? I think they
have a good Mirror article if anybody wants to check it out, because it starts that way at the moment, obviously, because it's still in the very early stages of, I think they're calling it stage 0 of the rollout. So it's like almost as early as you can get, really. So it's still very much Coinbase focused, centralized by Coinbase. Then I guess it's good they're on the road to decentralization. They've said that there won't be a native token, so that's another one to be careful of. If you're seeing a base token floating around there, which you will definitely see being promoted across your Twitter by some nefarious actors. Be careful of that. They're saying no token at the moment, but there will be, this process of decentralization, whether it's the mechanisms, which are called like the sequencer, and how transactions are ordered and how sort of the transaction flows across the rollup, I think all the way to development. So it's going to be interesting to see saying no token. I probably will agree with them that they just want ETH as the native token of the network, and then slowly decentralize core aspects like development and ordering of the transactions, which will be done by Coinbase at the moment, but hopefully decentralized over time. So I think it's going to be a long road, though, until you get to serious decentralization. But they're putting it at, they want to get end of next year to a good stage when they're not just dependent on Coinbase. But we're interested to see, because it's something that I'm really, really keen on. And I don't know if you guys got any other thoughts, but
that's a really good point, Nick. And there's a quote where it's, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So I think like Coinbase going alone at the start and just leading things, you'll be able to get really, really far. And then as you start to decentralize things and get people on board, you'll be able to go, they'll be able to go fast. And then if you want to go really far, you decentralize it and open it up to the public, and they'll just innovate on that chain. And you raised a really good point as well, where this is US based. So if I'm a company, I want to operate out of the US, these guys are going to be at the top of my list because I know they'll be on it, and I'll have regulatory compliance. It's something that I've just mentally outsourced to them and know that they need to be compliant. So therefore I am default compliant.
Yeah, I think the under zero token aspect as well, it's going to be interesting because, so ETH will be the native token, and then it's going to be interesting to see like how they sort of encourage developers to like come over, because normally like that's a heavy like tool for tokenizing. It's like you can use some of the allocation to do grants and subsidies and whatnot, and then even for like just us as users, it's going to be another heavy thing they do is subsidies to kind of like get people to come over and use the chain. Like that's even Arbitrum, you could argue, doesn't have a token at the moment, but it's like a part of the reason why it's got such big activity is because people are almost farming and trying to get airdrops in the future. And that's kind of our Optimism bootstrap. So we might see a scenario where, maybe Optimism like chuck in some OP to like help, to help do
the incentive program. They've got about 13% of their airdrop left. So maybe that sort of partnership with them. But I think the other key reason why I think that they can attract developers without a native token is that they have 100 million verified users on Coinbase. That's only going to grow in the next couple of years, especially when the market comes back. So you're incentivized to get access to all these customers that Coinbase have on their platform. So that's a really big moat, I think, for people that want to come in and build on Coinbase and Base, to get access to that flow of customers, which is so important for these apps to really connect to people.
Yeah, I was going to make this point as well. Yeah, it's not just about the token and selling their token to try and incentivize developers. When you're a developer and you need a whole bunch of people to come and use your protocol, you're going to go to the regulated Coinbase in the US because there's a whole bunch of people there, and you're going to have some measure of success, or at least higher success. Great point. I totally agree.
You go, Bergs, there.
Sorry, just quickly, I was going to ask you, Nick, and Matt and Leon, what do you think other exchanges and competitors, will there be any reaction to this? Do you see them making their own chains, or perhaps Binance going harder at what they're offering at the moment?
Binance is going to be in trouble.
Well, I know Binance talked a lot about their 10-year plan, and they talked a lot about how Binance, the exchange, may not be as popular, and that they may move some different aspects or, on chain via, the BNB chain. And we've seen some of this happen with some other exchanges, but I don't think to the scale of what Coinbase is doing. And, it's a sort of a different beast as well, what the Binance chain is compared to, I think, what Base will be. So it's, fascinating because, as we know, that's really centralized with, I think, 21 core Binance-led validators, whereas this is a completely different beast. So it's, really fascinating. But I think we will see more chains try and create their own sort of on-chain, or whether they just copy what Optimism are doing and sort of fork, or build on the Optimism stack.
I do like that little chuckle you put in there, Nick, with the 21 Binance-led validators.
Got to be careful how you word things, but it's very, haven't done too much digging into it. It's very scant on details about who these validators are.
Yeah, so I think Ethereum ETH Denver is coming up, I think, in a week or this week, and that's probably one of the biggest sort of Ethereum developer meetups in every year. So I think Base has said they're going to have quite a big presence there, and I think there might be some ideas sort of created there, and there'll be a lot of other just project specific announcements as well, typically.
One other thing I guess I wanted to add on closing on this Optimism-based discussion is we talked some bit about how Optimism is sort of Base is being a competitor to Optimism in a way, because I think a common myth might be that seeing the headlines that Base is building on Optimism, where it's not building on the network itself. So people may wonder, like, what is Optimism getting out of this then? If they're just partnering with a competitor like Coinbase. I think one of the few key things here is that Coinbase and Base is going to become a core contributor. I think a primary developer and contributor to the Optimism stack, and also Base will direct, I think, some transaction fees back to the treasury of Optimism, and they're also going to help fund public goods on Optimism on Ethereum. So Optimism definitely gets a lot of benefits from this, as it's easy to build, I think, and connect to Optimism. So they get access to this 100 million potential users from Coinbase, and then get also funding and some fees through it. So I think there's some there for Coinbase. I mean, for Optimism, general idea is that they're going to grow the pie. This is going to make it much, much bigger, much easier for people to access. A lot more value will be created, so that everybody, will just grow bigger and grow the pie rather than fight for, bigger slice each.
Yeah, well put. A good distinction there. So yeah, Base is being built with OP Stack, and it's not being built on top of Optimism. So yeah, good distinction. Yeah, looking forward to covering it more as it rolls out.
And just one final thing, token price appreciation up about 25% from when that announcement came out.
Yeah,
Oh,
OP's
nice.
really had a nice run in the past month or so. But yeah, even more so these past few days. So yeah, I think one other sort of big news item that did happen probably not long after our town hall last week was in relation to sort of the NFT marketplace wars that are going on at the moment between OpenSea, the incumbent. It's basically had a monopoly over the NFT marketplace market for a couple of years now, and they announced on Saturday that they were temporarily lowering their marketplace fees to zero. They did have it as 2.5% on every single buy sell, which was pretty like significant and like not really that good for the average retail customer. And then they also announced that optional royalties were going to be dropped to, I think, 0.5%, like a minimum. And then there are a bunch of sort of ways that just investors or traders could as they were buying an NFT, they could essentially like have the option to either pay like 2.5%, 5% royalties, or they could change it down to 0.5%. So it was kind of quite a big hit there for like the creatives. And this has all been come about because of the significant rise of Blur NFT marketplace. And it's just been really interesting sort of just like business strategy, like maneuvering going on here. And all of a sudden Blur, like at least temporarily is number one, like in terms of just like position, I think in market share, and even I think just community sentiment, to be honest. I think people are just turning off OpenSea in terms of just like their history of, not really like favoring creatives, but kind of saying that they do. But then, when it comes to push and shove, it's more of a business decision. And just on this, like this is like really, like I kind of just want to highlight this because it's just like it's so significant in just like the future of NFTs. I think like this is going to be looked back on as like a really like major event, because as we've talked about, this concept of royalties, I think a lot of artists and creatives unfortunately was sort of like told this sort of benefit that you can keep earning royalties forever on your artwork, like it's automatically paid. As we've talked about in previous months, like that's not the case. And eventually there was this sort of market sort of force that was eventually someone was going to come in and eventually go, hey, some marketplace is going to like not force royalties. And we've seen sort of the free open market eventually seeing that unfold. But I guess what I want to like emphasize here is I think it's more the culture of NFTs is drastically changing. I can like feel it in the past few weeks. It's like users, the traders, investors have been like big winners from the past few weeks, but artists and creatives have been like really big losers of this sort of free market dynamic, which is, yeah, pretty unfortunate in the sense that they kind of got told something that wasn't true. And they probably didn't have the technical knowledge to even know that royalties weren't on chain. But definitely the culture around NFTs has really notably shifted. And before I just hand it over, I did do a post earlier this week about just the other implications of this. I think big losers are also, from an investment standpoint, sort of low and mid-tier NFT collections. They are typically startups that haven't raised any external funding. So all their funding has come from the mint. And then the other revenue stream has been royalties. That's like that just like doesn't make any sense. As I said in the post, like it's a like pretty stupid like business strategy, to be honest. But like if that's what you're relying on for income, which unfortunately I think a lot of these were, I think they're kind of like in serious danger at the moment. I think the higher tier NFTs are still okay because they've basically all raised venture funding, which they have at least, 2-3 years of runway. But yeah, it's just like, I kind of just wanted to emphasize this Blur versus OpenSea battle. It's not just about tokens and airdrops and stuff. It's sort of drastically, changed the NFT sort of just environment or market.
Yeah, will that have an impact on like Solana NFTs? Because I know that Metaplex kind of come up with a token standard to enforce royalties on chain. I don't know if that's something that you're paying attention to, or you've really looked into Metaplex and sort of Solana ecosystem there.
Leon, I'll hand this over to you because I know this all happened earlier this year with Magic Eden anyway. Like this whole like scenario has already been playing out on Solana.
Yes, that's right. So watching an interview between Pac-Man and Bankless, they were talking about the same thing happening on Solana, but because Solana runs so much quicker, we've already gone through this entire race to the bottom in terms of fees for marketplaces, right? So this was between Magic Eden and Hyperspace. And basically like royalties are not really a thing so much more on Solana. So yes, same thing with DEXs. It goes all the way to the bottom to who's the last. Metaplex right now is trying to implement some changes to this to say, yes, we want to try and get creator fees back on. But of course, the community, as you're saying, Matt, is not really on board with it. The creators are suffering because of this, but the traders aren't really like interested in it. They just want to trade this NFT. Mm-hmm. They want to get 100% back. They don't want to lose 2% here, then another 3% here. So yeah, it's played out already, but it doesn't really like for me. I'm like, yes, we already know this is going to happen. So, and I'm surprised anyone else is actually surprised by it. Nothing else to say. It's just...
Maybe I'm kind of an optimist in the terms that in the framework that I feel like people will pay royalties. Like people can, like I'm probably an optimist. I think people will choose to pay royalties in a way if they really value that artwork and that culture. So maybe it's a case of this NFT culture where you're farming Blur airdrops and you just focus on making money on an NFT you have no connection to, or who knows if it even has really any value, or whether these people are just trading with each other.
Yeah, I think.
And then out of all this, we're going to see sort of royalties enforced, greater focus on the art and actual, the back to the artist of what this was originally meant to help.
Yeah, I think we will see a splitting of like the NFT niche in general of the people who are interested in actually being collectors, and people who are not really collectors, but they just want to trade the art and it kind of looks nice, because the creators will have their followers who keep coming back to try and get their NFTs and say, yes, I like your art. I know you. I visited you in person. Let's do it. I want to pay your royalty. I want to help you spur on. And then we'll have, of course, the crypto degens. They don't care. They just want to make a profit. Another 2% here and there. Nah.
Yeah, I like that idea, especially the idea of like you're an artist, then I guess smart contracts can put anything into them, any functionality, whether it's you get priority mint if you pay royalties forward.
Yes, I was going to say that. That's
these new
big
paradigms, which I think people will hopefully come out with, and that really gives power back to those creators and less away to those NFT flippers who are very short-term aligned. You want You want to align incentives properly to people who will keep it, pay royalties, and then buy your artwork again.
That's it. And it's amazing what a competitor in a market will do, where you just
it's been
force,
amazing to watch, to be honest. Yeah.
yeah, you're forced to react. And really, if we think about it, this is called a market penetration strategy. So you've got a pool of customers and you want to penetrate further into that same market. And really what we're seeing is a race to the bottom. So you lower your prices, you lower your fees. And who wins in that scenario? The customer. Because the companies don't win. Because they're reducing all their fees, and then the artists don't win either. And I totally agree where these are becoming more kind of separate customer segments, where you've got the NFT flippers, and then you've got more kind of casual people, or people that are into art, or they're about the kind of, royalties and the artists behind it. And you're spot on, Matt, when you start to talk about the culture between those two. And I just wanted to ask you guys, I went to Blur. I haven't been to Blur yet. I go on OpenSea all the time. And even for price discovery, it's asking me to connect my wallet. And my initial instinct is get stuffed. I can't be bothered doing that. That's like a barrier too far. Do you guys go to Blur? Do you have your wallet connected? Do you look at that? Or do you mainly go to kind of OpenSea, or where do you sell, or you're not doing much selling at the moment?
Well, sorry, you go, man.
So I've started using it more. I've started using it more, and OpenSea less and less. I'm starting to basically trend my behavior. I'm starting to go to Blur a lot more. And just very quickly before I hand over to you, Leon, another just insanely smart, I think shrewd decision by Blur this week was to, when they launched season 2 of their airdrop, they have this button on the website which if you click it, you get 100% loyalty, which boosts your airdrop sort of the amount you're going to be eligible for next. And what it does is it automatically delists your NFTs from any other marketplace.
Yeah.
And therefore,
So good.
All your listings will be on Blur.
That's crazy.
So your loyalty score will be 100. Therefore, you'll earn more Blur when they're so clever.
Yes, so in a way, it's no surprise that we're seeing this shift away. Then, if it's because they're actively blocking their competitor, it's interesting what happens.
Incentivize.
Yeah, they're pulling everyone away from OpenSea, and that's why they probably feel so threatened. Be like, hey, we're going to reduce our fees too.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
You've been checking it out, Leon. Actually, I think you did a video on it that's coming out soon.
Yeah, so I have done a video on Blur Marketplace. I don't use it very often because it is geared more towards the traders rather than just the nice user interface of OpenSea. And I also, secondly, I don't use it as much because it's on Ethereum. I don't really dabble on Ethereum NFTs so much so. But I know a few members do. But I can see, and I've been there because I've used other interfaces. It is really good, sleek, smooth, minimal loading time, very quick, very, very quick. And that's what users want. It gives me a better experience than on OpenSea. So yeah, video coming out soon. Make sure you check it out if you're interested.
That was their main value proposition on the website, where it's super fast loading times. Don't wait around. Don't do anything on Blur. That's just as you're scrolling down, that's exactly what they say.
Oh,
that's
really?
fantastic.
Yeah.
And I love that strategy of, could you imagine being OpenSea and, you're an admin or something, you log in, you see all these things delisted and you see the volume go up on Blur and you're like, how did that happen? And because these are public open blockchains, you can write the code to do that. And you control your wallet and where things are listed. I just love that loyalty button. That's amazing.
Yeah, another beauty of crypto, right? People can come and outsmart you if you think you have a monopoly and you're not treating your customers right. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very interested to see how this progresses over the months ahead. And yeah, a lot of people farming going to be eligible for the next season 2 Blur airdrop, but just know that it's heavily now there's a lot of people trying to be eligible and then watch trading and farming for it and stuff. So just know that it's going to be hard to get a decent airdrop, but it still might be worth something, because I think Blur will be around for many years to come, as opposed to Looks Rare or X2Y2, which didn't really do anything that different, but they had a token and now it's not worth much. But
that's a good point, Matt, where you get the initial drop, but then if it's a decent company and product, you would expect them to do well over time, and you would expect that token to appreciate rather than just a stimulus check, offload it and go and buy something else.
Yeah, that's perfect description. That's why X2Y2 and Looks Rare.
Coinbase also in their announcement, they had a good pod today with I think Blockworks guys. They basically just said that people have been deploying tokens as a way to compensate for lack of product market fit or like real unique value of their platform, as just a cheap way to really get used in the short term. But
that's it. If
It's marketing.
you don't have product market fit, how do you get customers? You pay them.
Yeah, it's like great for user acquisition, but like it has
It's
nothing to do
mercenary.
with retention. Yeah.
Yeah, it's mercenary. People come and go. Oh, you give me a token? Thank you. Goodbye.
Yeah, yeah. No, spot on. Speaking of those sort of, tokens or, deeper down the market caps or lower down the charts, we have got a few updates this week. I'll let you kick things off with something on Matic.
yeah, we'll probably skip through these fairly quickly. We've got Polygon. They actually cut 20% of their staff, I think, from Polygon Labs, which is really interesting, seeing how high their burn is and how much their costs are. Which I think their treasury is down to 250 million. It's not big by every sense of the imagination, but I guess if they're burning a lot and they've got still 300 odd staff, it'd be interesting to Matic if they if anything happens in the market or they can't reduce costs in a few years. I don't think they're going to be. I won't foresee trouble, but definitely potential there with such a high burn rate and a lot of staff. How quickly treasuries can dwindle, especially if token prices go down.
I think they've got like 2 billion Matic or something as well, or something. It's 1 billion Matic in that treasury, plus the 250 million in like US. Yeah. But yeah, again, they wouldn't want to sell that Matic because then it would just, that was notable. Synthetics, they've been working on V3 for a while now, and that actually got deployed to mainnet yesterday. So that's on Ethereum, and then it also was launched on Optimism at the same time. And then there was one for Rocket Pool.
Yeah, keeping on the Coinbase theme, I think the Coinbase Ventures come out and said that they sort of have an active investment into Rocket Pool, and it looks like they'll start to run potentially their own nodes and sort of infrastructure inside that. So I think that's something we're looking forward to once Ethereum withdrawals are enabled. Really anticipating a massive shift in stake away from Lido towards Rocket Pool, who currently only holds a single-digit percentage, I think 1 to 2% of the staked ETH. Really expecting a lot of people to pivot and move to Rocket Pool.
And I just wanted to put my tinfoil hat on for a little bit here and say, staking products or earn products in America are turning to be securities, right? But you have Coinbase, who are funding Rocket Pool, which is a decentralized staking service and a new layer 1 blockchain. So we're going to have RPL as a decentralized staking on Base, which Coinbase is going to use. That's my tinfoil hat. What do you think about that?
I know that there's contention about Kraken's case here because it's like staking, I guess, as a service from these centralized entities. That's potentially where the issue is, not any of these dApps that do it for the consumer, because they're sort of that intermediary or like that software layer. And also Kraken's an interesting one because they did list things like things that had 20% APYs for their staking program. So I saw some of the stuff in their staking program that wasn't 1-for-1 like Coinbase's, which I think Coinbase would argue. So that's an interesting one to see. Some of the stuff they had on their staking program maybe more resembled an earn program compared to staking program. But keen to see if we see Coinbase get pulled up by the SEC, we know then that it's really any staking program.
It is,
exchange is in trouble. So keen to see that.
We'll see it happen, yeah.
And then, so it's like the extent to it, if you then want to go to an option that's like more decentralized, it's like, you then...
We have RPL on
Who are the
Base.
token holders behind that? It's probably a similar thing people argue with MakerDAO and the DAI stablecoin. It's like backed by, a lot of it's backed by USDC, things like that. But progressive decentralization, I think that's the way everything's going, slowly but surely. But yeah, we will wrap things up for our public on the podcast and on YouTube. Do head over to collectiveshift.io for more on what we do here at Collective Shift. And you can also, as of recently, book a free strategy call with our founder, Ben. So he'll take you through, different strategies that, investors typically go on when they're sort of getting into the crypto market. So yeah, he's calendar's booking up fast. I think he's pretty sick at the moment, actually. So that'll be good. That'll be good to get him on where he's feeling a bit better. But yeah, until then, we'll see you next time.
See you later.